Hulk Hogan died. People are sad. Some people are happy. I don't know when we ever got into this place in the world where we actively rejoice when somebody dies, unless like they're a war criminal. Now, Hulk Hogan has a very, very spotty track record, to say the least. And I'm a white guy, so like it doesn't apply to me. The outrage, I can't really feel the same kind of outrage to somebody who does feel maligned or let down by Hulk Hogan from a recording that was done without his knowledge years and years ago. It's a bad recording. And it also kind of would make you think that it's not the first time he dropped the word that he did and the sentiment behind it that he did. And so I'm not making an excuse for him. Do I feel like it probably would have been a little bit sensible to maybe wait a day before you dance on the guy's grave? Maybe. Do I think that it's totally fair that people on the day of his death said, hey, all-time great in pro wrestling, also kind of a shitty human being for some of the stuff that he said? I think it's probably fair. I think there's like a middle ground that you can kind of find. Now, I will just speak on this from the perspective of somebody who likes pro wrestling and has grown up a pro wrestling fan and is, once again, a pretty avid pro wrestling fan. You can't talk about the history of professional wrestling without Hulk Hogan. Now, we could have a conversation about whether or not he was ultimately the best thing for business towards the end of his run in WCW. We could certainly have a conversation about his return to WWE after WCW went under. We can have a talk about whether or not he really hurt TNA/Impact when he went there on Spike TV. They went from the 6-sided ring to a 4-sided ring. We could have that conversation. We could talk about whether the real American Freestyle Wrestling League that he and Eric Bischoff started, have a conversation about whether or not that was a good idea, about the Real American Lager. His last appearance with WWE was out in California. He came out with Jimmy Hart, and the crowd in California booed him mercilessly. And then, in the aftermath of it, he did an interview where somebody said, hey, what did you think about people booing you? And he goes, oh, no, brother. They were booing Jimmy, Mouth of the South Hart, brother. They weren't booing Hulk Hogan, brother. They were booing Jimmy. Yeah, brother. No, they were booing you. But here's the thing. I don't know if I can blame you. If you are somebody who heard those comments and felt personally offended and wounded by those words, you have the right to boo. And you probably should have booed. I look at it simply from a very flawed human being, but who did give me, as a pro wrestling fan, some of my favorite memories, including Bash at the Beach, where he comes out and it looks like he's going to save Macho Man and the WCW team. And everybody's waiting for the third man. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash are in the ring. And then they scurry away like rats. And Hogan gets in the ring. And as he's walking down, Bobby the Brain Heenan says, yeah, but whose side is he on? And Tony Schiavone goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, whose side is he on? Hall and Nash are out of the ring. Hogan walks over to the far side of the ring. He looks at them. He turns around. He's talking to the ref. He leans his back against the ropes, and he drops the leg on Macho Man. The best heel turn in the history of pro wrestling. Something that can never be recreated. You can try to make the case that the John Cena turn at Elimination Chamber with The Rock doing the throat slit was better. The follow-up to that has been Garbaggio, which does affect its overall impact. The NWO was like the thing that took over wrestling, part of 83 weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, while we do not condone everything Hulk Hogan has done in his life, we do appreciate the memories that he made for pro wrestling fans. Now, I was not around for the 80s. I saw in the very beginning somebody was saying about Macho Man and Hogan, what that meant to be in the 80s, what wrestling was like in the 80s. I wasn't around for it. But as a kid who grew up during the Monday Night Wars, there will always be part of me that can appreciate the character on screen, not the man behind the character, and says the character on screen is unforgettable.